I am extremely pleased, and we are very fortunate to have Member of Parliament Vance Badawey here with us today from the Niagara region, hometown of Port Colborne. And as I understand it, he was first elected to City Council in 1994 and was the youngest member of City Council. I figure he was maybe 10 years old at the time, something like that, just by how good he looks right now. But that wasn't enough. He moved on to become mayor of Port Colborne, and at two different times served as mayor, and now is in Ottawa as a member of Parliament, bringing local perspective and common sense to how Parliament is run, much as Mayor Barrett did in Washington and straightened Congress out in the years that he was there. It's kind of fallen apart since he left, but having people who fully understand the local perspective, I think, is exceedingly important. And I know Mr. Badawey brings that to Ottawa. His family has been in the local business in Port Colborne for over 50 years. And a little thing in his bio that particularly impressed me, and I am in so much agreement with, is the importance of community. Almost even more important than government. I know in Chicago, in my neighborhood, the church group, different groups I'm involved in, this sense of community is really important. And what I think we've got in this organization is kind of the heart and soul of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence community. So we are trying to do that on a little bit larger scale, and we will hear a little bit about Mr. Badawey's perspective on all of this, and please join me in welcoming Vance Badawey, Member of Parliament from Port Colborne, and I think it's referred to as Central Region, or Central Niagara, is that the? So please join me in welcoming Mr. Badawey.
Thank you, David. Those comments are very, very kind, very kind. But it is a pleasure to be here once again. Some of you, I see familiar faces, especially David, being a mayor and part of this organization for many years prior, working out of Port Colborne, Ontario, which some of you may know where it is. It's right on the north shore of Lake Erie, and as well a regional councillor for the region of Niagara. Did a lot of work with David and a lot of you and a lot of the folks that were passed here with the association in all parts of not just Canada but the United States. Today, I'm honored to represent over 120,000 people in Niagara Centre. And Niagara Centre pretty well takes in an area in the Niagara region, right up the Canal Corridor, from Port Colborne, Ontario, which is Lake Erie, pretty well up into St. Catharines, Lake Ontario, and of course the rivers and the streams that travel through the region, the Niagara River, and of course the Welland River, and a lot of water ecosystem with respect to our responsibility, and not only with economy and what it does contribute to the overall economy, but as well with respect to the ecosystem and of course the responsibility we have as municipalities to ensure that the ecosystem is well sustained. And I have to preface my comments by saying this. You know, I was a mayor for 14 years and worked, as David said, with our communities in Niagara, that being 12, 13 including the region. And with that, felt it very important as a mayor that not only are you governing, but you're also motivating, you're inspiring, and you really want to ensure that when you're looking through a lens in each decision that you make, you're looking through a lens of a triple bottom line. And every decision that you make, you want to ensure that those three components of the triple bottom line are looked after and ensuring that the sustainability, not just for today, but for many, many, many decades following our time, either in office or on this earth for that matter. And that being environment, economy, and of course social. And with that, a lot of the decisions that we make, sometimes we can struggle with, being leaders in our communities. But when we work together, not only in the communities, but as regions, as provinces, and of course as countries, you'd be surprised how much you can get done and how responsible you can be while doing it. As I said earlier, one of the things that I feel is very, very important at the federal level now is ensuring that we govern not just with the 184 members that make up our government, that being the Liberal Party, which I'm a part of, but the Prime Minister has been very clear that we're going to govern with all 338 seats in the House, regardless of what party they belong to. We want to ensure that every riding has equality with respect to representation. And we also want to ensure that the people that live in those ridings get their fair share and, of course, their voices heard. And once again, regardless of what party they belong to or they support. It is a House of Commons, and with that, every member in the House of Commons is to be respected, and the comments and the issues that they bring forward are to be dealt with, and we find that very important. As well, as a former mayor, and many of us are, that sit in the House, regardless of what side of the floor we sit on, it's very important that we bring the municipalities and the federal government closer together. It's always been tradition that the federal government is somewhat insulated on the Hill up in Ottawa, and of course the municipalities work in isolation closer with the provinces. But one of the things that we're really trying to do is bring the municipalities and the federal government closer together, not only with the obvious, with infrastructure dollars and certain issues that you may be dealing with, but also a lot of other, and when I say other, is what I'm going to discuss today. It is an honor, it's a privilege actually, to be a keynote speaker here today, an event attended by so many people across the Great Lakes. And you're devoted to bettering your communities, and that's to be commended. Not only your communities, but your states, your provinces, and of course, the country that you belong to. Bettering our shared Great Lakes is of great importance, and bettering our countries together through partnership and of course, friendship is equally as important. Everyone here comes from different backgrounds. We either come from Canada or we come from the United States. Some of us serve on communities or serve our communities, some at the federal level, some at the provincial level, some at the private sector, some are NGOs, organizations, etc. And with that, the one thing that connects all of us is in fact the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River. And of course, with the river comes the St. Lawrence Seaway System, which provides us with an important economic and transportation opportunity, but as well a responsibility to look after the ecosystem that is part of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence. Here in the region of Niagara, and of course the Great Lakes that are attached to it, we have the Welland Canal. We have Lakes Erie in Ontario. We have the Niagara River. With that, we have foreign trade zone designations on both sides of the border. We have gateway designations, which offer incentives for economy to grow, and many other benefits, but for one reason, and that's our location, and of course the Great Lakes and the rivers and streams that we have amongst us. But again, how important it is for us to take down that wall and not look at it as two countries, but look at it as a Great Lakes region, whether it be economy, whether it be responsibility for the ecosystem, regardless, how important it is to work together. The lakes provide us with opportunities, the opportunities such as fishing and recreation, beaches, streams, lifestyle, but as well, an inexpensive, low-carbon transport of goods that connects our countries together, as well as connects us to the overall global markets. They serve as a vital resource for the economy, but once again, we can't lose sight of the responsibility that we have to ensure that the Great Lakes are sustainable well into the future. Having spent the last 8 months representing, and I call it Canada's Canal Corridor riding, which is Niagara Centre, we have the Welland Canal running right up the middle of our riding. And having served them for the past 8 months in Canada's new Parliament, I am always advocating the importance of the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway, and the St. Lawrence River, and the rivers and streams, and everything that goes along with it. This, the Seaway, which I want to touch on first, serves as an important tool for transportation, moving over 164 million metric tons of goods annually. Along with this movement, there's a massive amount of goods, very diverse, and it's changing daily. The Seaway also creates 100,000 jobs on the Canadian side and about $2 billion in taxes to the federal, provincial, and municipal governments. Those numbers, ladies and gentlemen, are bound to increase well into the future now that the Niagara region in Canada, but as well the regions in Western New York, have both been designated as foreign trade zones. With the benefits to business that comes along with the FTZ designation, I'm here in the States, so I should say FTZ designation, such as duty relief programs, drawback programs, customs bonded warehousing, export distribution center programs, and exporters of processing service programs, to name just a few. Besides those programs, businesses also receive a one-stop shop to come here and do business in, and regardless of what business that may be, to move goods freely in a multimodal, intermodal fashion, once again ensuring responsibility with respect to transportation. By creating a coordinated supply chain between our two countries and the Great Lakes, we can continue to draw new business and economic development. My home community of Niagara Center is an example of how working together on a national, a state, provincial, and municipal level, we can create success. It was these joint efforts that encouraged General Electric to most recently announce the building of their new operation in the city of Welland. While the foreign trade zone designation is a good thing for us, it would not have been possible without our location along the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Seaway system. Everyone here, including myself, is fortunate to have a community that is impacted by the Great Lakes. Within Ontario, the Seaway reinforces the regional economy. The Great Lake economy is also strengthened by ensuring establishment of transportation strategies. Those transportation strategies also include, once again, that triple bottom line lens to ensure that while we're putting these transportation strategies in place, that those three elements from a triple bottom line are looked at and looked after: social, environment, and economy, not in no order. I also want to emphasize how vital it is that we protect and preserve the lakes. We need to do everything we can to ensure that the ecosystems within the Great Lakes are maintained and kept healthy. Although being used for economy, we must not forget what the Great Lakes ultimately are, have to offer, and once again, our responsibility to ensure sustainability. Protecting the lakes from invasive species such as sea lamprey, Asian carp, and non-native Phragmites is in fact a necessity to cultivate a clean environment. We have an obligation to preserve the Great Lakes for both the individuals who rely on them for their livelihood, but more importantly, for future generations, so that they can utilize this Great Lake ecosystem, Great Lakes region as their resource well into the future. Safe drinking water for our communities, safe beaches for our tourism, as well as safe fish habitats. It's important for government officials on both sides of the border to understand what travels across the Great Lakes. The cargo that travels on the St. Lawrence Seaway and the Great Lakes contains and connects grain farmers from the prairies, mining companies in the north, and the steel mills in the south to customers in Canada, the United States, and around the world. It is important to promote a binational effort between Canada and the United States and ensure that proper legislation is put in place on both sides of the border to ensure not only consistent but sustainable regulations. The Great Lakes are one body of water, and I believe we need to have rules and regulations, once again, that are consistent on both sides of the border. We have come together over time to manage our local, provincial, or our state fishing regulations in the Great Lakes. Now is the time to continue that spirit of cooperation to, for example, ensure that farming regulations with respect to nutrient management in one state or country is consistent with states, provinces, and other countries. In that way, it creates a more sustainable future, well into the future for future generations. The Great Lakes are a shared resource that can bring prosperity to both countries if we, in fact, work together. And I commend all of you. I commend all of you for what you're doing. You're here, binationally, working. How long has this organization been going on?
13 years.
13 years. But even before that, the initiatives that you worked on. And you're to be commended. And speak loudly. Speak loudly to your state, federal, provincial, federal levels of government. Speak loudly because you are where the rubber hits the ground. You are the ones that are doing the work. Hence the reason why it's so important that the federal levels and the municipal levels come much closer together. Recently in Canada, we have reviewed the Canada Transportation Act, better known as the CTA or the Emerson Report. The Government of Canada is examining the findings and recommendations of the CTA. The review panel, which was led by the Honourable David Emerson, this review has already led to changes in transport policy, for example, train safety, and others that we're currently getting into since it was tabled in February. This will continue to heavily influence the work that the House of Commons Transport Committee does for the rest of this year and on into future years. The Canada Transportation Act review is playing a major role in dictating future transportation and infrastructure priorities. It is my personal desire to now move forward in establishing a Canada transportation strategy. By connecting the transportation corridors, we can create a greater system that will bring even more trade, more emphasis, more responsibility to the Great Lakes. This in a multimodal, intermodal fashion. This would increase the already large $7 billion being spent by the shipping industry and governments on both sides of the border to improve infrastructure. Asset renewal. At the same time, ensuring that when investing in infrastructure and asset renewal, once again, it's looked at through the lens of a triple bottom line. With Canadians and Americans demanding more environmentally sustainable transportation methods, this, ladies and gentlemen, is a great opportunity in 2016 to promote not only economy, but as well environment and responsible environment on the Great Lakes. So with that, I ask each and every one of you to go back to your communities and ask, how can our community work to protect our share of the Great Lakes in St. Lawrence? Beyond that, once again, speak with us, whether it be in Ottawa or in Washington. When we look, for example, at the transportation strategy, how does that connect your communities? How does that connect provinces? How does that connect countries? Because albeit the transportation strategy will integrate the different methods of transportation on this side of the border, how does it integrate with the methods of transportation on the other side of the border? And how are we responsible in ensuring that those strategies take into consideration environment, social, and economy? You know that. Each and every one of you knows that. You're living it every day. We have to hear it. We have to hear it loud and clear, so that therefore when we're setting policy and we're investing in infrastructure, that we are assured that not only do we get return on those dollars, but also, as part of that return, it's sustainable environment on the Great Lakes and on the St. Lawrence. How can we partner? How can we partner? How can we better partner as countries? How can we better work together? How can we ensure that this fresh water, that we are fortunate, and make no mistake about it, we're fortunate and privileged to have here in our backyards. How can we ensure sustainability? To ensure that our children have a sustainable environment, as well with economic, social responsibilities for today, but more importantly for tomorrow. And I have to say, although we're in office 4 years, 5 years at a time, we can't just look in 4 or 5 year pockets. We have to look at 10, 15, 30, 50, 100 years down the road with the decisions that we make today. That is essential, especially when looking at the ecosystem, because we can see, because of the performance or lack thereof of society going back 100 years, why we're in the position we're in today. So therefore, we have a responsibility to ensure moving forward that we make decisions that go well beyond our time in office, our time in our jobs, or quite frankly, our time here on this great earth. We may live in different cities, we may live in different provinces or states, countries, but we all live on the shores of the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence. And together, ladies and gentlemen, together, we as two nations, two strong nations, two responsible nations, together we can protect, we can develop, and we can ensure responsibility across the Great Lakes Basin, but as well in the communities that we represent so proudly. I thank you very much.